Is classical music dead? We all know that Mozart, Beethoven, Tárrega, and Sar are all dead. But what about classical music as a whole? That's what we set out to find out, and we asked as many people as we could. First, we wanted to get the perspective of the general public about the topic. Is classical music dead?
No.
Yes.
No.
I mean, my mom's big into it.
Pop culture, yeah.
Dying, I don't know if it's dead yet.
It is probably a bit more niche.
Well, sometimes listen to classical music when I go to sleep.
Being able to understand it and truly grasp it is like a talent in and of itself.
I was just listening to the Ratatouille soundtrack.
I use it a lot studying. I think Apple Music just came out with a new classical music app.
It's kind of the foundation for brewing new musicians.
So it's really good for education, basically.
Yes.
I think a lot of modern music is very uncreative and doesn't necessarily require as much talent as I think older music may have required without the, technological and electronic additions.
You can't not listen to Paul Simon and get into some form of arpeggiation and classical shapes and diminished chords and whatnot, so yeah.
Have you ever been to a classical concert with your mom or with somebody else?
No, I don't think I have. I think she saw it was like a classical guitarist, like he's always there, or like Yo-Yo Ma.
Is Yo-Yo Ma your favorite guitarist?
No, he's not a guitarist. You try to get me there. I know. I know that dude plays cello.
Before we get to some classical students, let's take a quick break to ask some questions about the most famous guitarist that ever lived. Have you ever heard of a guy called Segovia?
No.
I have not.
Segovia, I haven't.
No.
No, I haven't.
No.
Yes.
Nice, okay. You are actually the first person to say yes. Have you ever listened to any of his stuff?
We listened to one song in one of my theory classes.
He's an old dude. He's been dead a while.
Segovia with the guitar?
No. I wish. No, I'm not Segovia's ghost right now. So I'm going to ask you a very provocative question, and I want you to answer truthfully. Is classical music dead?
It's hard to say something's died if it's still, even partially alive. It's very deep within the curriculum of musical education.
The composers of old are still going to live on for a while, but I feel like us in the modern day could innovate a bit more.
I think it's truly just growing into a larger art form, kind of going into film music and then what we say new music with the composers and how they are continuing to keep classical music alive.
I think it's not mainstream anymore, but I definitely don't think it's dead, no.
A lot of orchestras don't play as much new music as they can, and they don't uplift new composers. And as long as we still play music from the 1800s, it is dying because we're refusing to honor the new composers that are coming out.
As a whole, the classical music community, I think we could just embrace different versions of what it means for something to be called concert music or what's, held to the highest regard even.
Do you think it was mainstream at some point in history?
Of course, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th century,
It's interesting. I want to dig deeper into that a little bit. So if you're in Europe, then definitely you would have heard classical music in those centuries. But if you are outside of Europe, I don't think you would have.
No, because the classical music that we all know is all Western music, right? So if you were, growing somewhere in Asia or in Africa or the Middle East, you probably would not have been exposed to that now.
So interestingly, in today's society, it feels like maybe more people are exposed to it, or what do you think is what do you think is the global situation?
I mean, now we have the media and the internet and globalization, so that's probably has something to do with it. But yeah,
I would maybe describe it as weakened rather than dead. I totally agree. I think there's a lot of room for innovation in modern orchestras and chamber music, a lot of which I think should have been done already.
I think it kind of just lives through other things, and when it's died, it's like nobody's listening to it, nobody's taking inspiration from it. So I don't really know if it will ever die, unless music just stops being a thing.
And if you had to describe classical music in one word or a few words, what adjectives would you use to describe it?
I would say it's like intricate. I know there's a lot of moving parts to it.
Calming and beautiful, and yeah, those.
Iconic. I do have a deep love for classical music.
I think refined.
Encapsulating, honest, and thick.
I think niches always stay niches, and for those who want to find it, will always be able to find it.
The numbers show that more people are listening to classical music nowadays than at any other time in history, and yet there is this general perception that classical music's heyday is in its past. This is a rather Eurocentric view that doesn't take into account the fact that outside Western Europe, classical music has actually been seeing a huge surge in popularity beginning in the 20th century. Then again, it does seem that a big chunk of the non-musician public uses classical music mostly for specific purposes like studying or even sleeping, rather than counting it amongst their favorite genres. So, is classical music dead? We figured it out, and I'm going to write the answer on the back of this sign.